Have you ever felt that the more spiritually awakened you become, the harder it seems to truly love someone? That the more you understand about energy, consciousness, and inner freedom, the more impossible it becomes to find someone who understands you on the same depths? It's as if everyone else is still playing a game you can no longer play, the game of masks, of needs, of empty promises. And the more you try to fit in, the more you realize that the love others call true is actually just a disguised exchange of affection. In this video, I'll show you why true love seems impossible to the spiritually awakened, and most importantly, how this impossibility is actually one of the most profound signs of spiritual evolution. You'll understand what really happens when your consciousness awakens and love ceases to be a necessity and becomes awareness. We'll talk about why so many relationships fail when one of the partners awakens, and why spiritually mature people can no longer love the same way they once did. But calm down, this isn't a video about giving up on love. It's about discovering a way of loving that the world doesn't yet understand. A love without control, without dependence, without fear. A love that doesn't bind, but liberates. Stay until the end, because what you're about to hear here could completely change the way you understand love, and maybe make you realize that true love was never impossible. It was just waiting for you to wake up. Now you understand why. True love was never about absence, but rather awareness. When this reality sinks in, your way of seeing relationships changes forever. You stop chasing after it and start attracting what truly resonates with you. This is the kind of transformation you can't keep to yourself. So show that this content has awakened you, like it, and subscribe to the channel. Here, each video is another step towards understanding who you are, healing your emotional wounds, and learning to experience love fully, freely, and truly. Have you ever noticed that after your consciousness awakens, everything changes? Conversations that once seemed interesting now sound hollow. People you thought understood, you start to seem distant, and even love. The love that once seemed like the meaning of life starts to feel fuzzy. It's as if what once made sense suddenly no longer fits your way of seeing the world. And the strangest thing is, no one prepared you for this. Everyone talks about spiritual awakening as if it were a path to peace, light, and understanding. But no one warns you how much it messes with your heart. When you awaken, you stop seeing love as a fairy tale and start to see what lies behind it. The attachments, the projections, the expectations. And that's when the first shock comes. You realize that almost no one truly loves. And worst of all, that perhaps you didn't even know what that meant until now. Spiritual awakening is like changing the lenses of life. Before, you loved expecting something in return. Affection, attention, security. Now you understand that love is not a bargaining chip, but an expansion of being. And this changes everything. Suddenly, what once seemed natural, that need to have someone to feel complete, starts to feel strange, heavy, almost suffocating. You begin to notice patterns that once seemed normal. People who claim to love but really want to control. Relationships that are sustained more by the fear of loneliness than by genuine connection. It's at this point that love begins to seem impossible, because what the world calls love is not what your awakened heart seeks. It's like trying to feed on wind. It doesn't satisfy hunger, it only deceives. Many people going through this process think the problem lies within themselves. Am I demanding too much? Am I becoming cold? Have I lost the capacity to love? But no, the opposite is happening. You're beginning to understand real love, the kind that comes not from neediness, but from awareness. You no longer want someone to complete you. You want someone who overflows with you. And when this happens, it's natural to feel a certain emptiness at first. After all, everything you've learned about love since childhood is being deconstructed. It's normal to feel a little lost, a little out of place. Those who awaken begin to realize that most people love with their ego, not their heart, and this creates a distance that's hard to explain. Have you ever tried to talk about this with someone and felt like they looked at you like, you're overreacting? It's normal. People still see love as a contract. I'll give you this, you give me that. But for those who have understood that true love isn't about possession, it's about freedom. That logic simply doesn't work anymore. You don't want someone to save you, you want someone to walk alongside. And, paradoxically, the more you understand this, the lonelier the path seems. Because now, Love is no longer about finding someone and has become about recognizing yourself in the other. And that's rare. That's why so many awakened people think love is over, when in fact it's just beginning, just in a way the world doesn't yet understand. And here's an interesting point. When you change the way you love, the universe begins to test how much you've truly learned. People from the past return, new opportunities arise, and you start to feel that urge to fall back into the same old stories. Only now, something inside you won't let you. It's as if your body says no even when your mind insists on saying yes. This is your new level of consciousness protecting you. It's your awakening reminding you that you no longer need to repeat old cycles to feel alive. True love doesn't hurt, doesn't drain, doesn't demand. It flows, it adds. And until you fully understand this, the universe will continue to place you in front of loves that show you what love is not. And it's curious how, in this process, love begins to seem increasingly distant. You see couples, stories, movies, and feel like none of it represents you anymore. It's as if you've woken up in a world that's still asleep. But this feeling of disconnection is exactly what prepares you for the next step. It's the space between the old and the new, between what you were and what you're becoming. It's there that true love begins to be born, not from an encounter, but from an understanding. You begin to realize that love isn't a destination, it's a way of life. And when this understanding matures, you stop searching and begin to recognize. And I want you to comment on one word now to show that you understand this first step. Write "wake up" in the comments, because that's what's happening to you, an awakening within love. And whoever comments this word is saying they're ready to stop repeating old stories and start living something real. But there's still a missing part that almost no one realizes. What happens when this consciousness starts to collide with the real world, with people who still love conditionedly, with expectations and fear? That's when things get intense. And that's exactly what we'll talk about in the next section. Once awakening occurs, love ceases to be a refuge and begins to become a mirror. And it's at this point that many people fall apart, because the mirror doesn't show what you want to see. It shows what still needs healing. It's when you realize that much of what you called love was actually fear in disguise. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of not being loved in return. And when fear fades, the stage is empty. The silence of awakening is heavy because it's devoid of distractions. You begin to see everything that sustained your relationships, need, attachment, ego, and then comes the blow, romantic love, the kind society has been selling since fairy tales, no longer convinces you. You long for something purer, more true, but you still don't know exactly what it is. The E. People around you continue to believe that love is about finding your other half, someone who will fill what's missing. But those who awaken realize that nothing is missing. Love isn't a complement, it's an overflow. And that's where the abyss arises. How do you connect with someone who still seeks in another what they can't find within themselves? It's difficult, because you already see through the game. You already notice when "I love you" comes full of expectation, when affection is an exchange, when presence is a demand. And the more you see this, the more shallow the love of others seems. Not out of arrogance, but because you've already tasted emotional freedom, and any relationship that tries to hold you back begins to suffocate you. This is where Alan Watts' teachings fit with frightening precision. He said that love isn't a doing, it's a letting be. That true love isn't born of effort, but of the absence of control. And the awakened understand this in practice. You stop trying to mold the other person. Stop creating stories in your head about how the relationship should be. You start observing, accepting, and letting the other person be who they are. But this also brings pain, because when you love this way, you realize that many people aren't ready for this kind of love. They confuse freedom with disinterest, space with coldness, calm with a lack of passion. And this creates a feeling of being outside the system, as if you've forgotten how to love within the world's rules. And maybe you do. The awakened one doesn't love with urgency, they love with presence. They don't promise eternity, they offer truth. And for many people this is uncomfortable, because the love the world knows is full of illusions. Watts said that love is like dancing. You don't dance to get somewhere, you dance because the movement is pleasurable. And when you understand this, love stops being a goal and becomes an experience. The problem is that most people still want to run, not dance. They want to control the rhythm, not feel the music. So when an awakened one crosses paths with someone who still lives in the logic of having, there's an inevitable disconnect. And you start to wonder, is there anyone who loves the way I do now? This doubt hurts because it seems the price of seeing clearly is loneliness. But what really hurts isn't being alone. It's realizing you can't go back to who you were before. And this awareness is irreversible. Once you understand what love without possession is, you can't accept anything less. But until you find someone who understands this too, the path may seem like a desert. But it's in this desert that you grow stronger. It's there that you learn to be self-sufficient and to discover that true love isn't about someone completing you, but about someone recognizing you. And I want to know from you, have you ever felt that feeling of no longer fitting in with the kind of love the world offers? Write the word real in the comments, so I know you've made it this far and understood the point. This kind of sharing is what keeps this community alive, people who are learning to love in a different, more conscious and more genuine way. But there's something few realize. When you reach this level of consciousness, your energy shifts. You begin to vibrate in a way that pushes away the superficial and attracts the real. But this shift comes at a price, and that's what we'll talk about next. When your energy shifts, everything changes. People start reacting differently, environments seem more intense, and even love takes on a new weight. It's as if, after awakening, your frequency vibrates at a different rhythm, and this makes it nearly impossible to connect in the same way with those who still live on the surface. You begin to feel the weight of shallow conversations, empty promises, and I love yous that come with ulterior motives. And the curious thing is that the purer your love becomes, the harder it seems to maintain it in relationships. Because the world still doesn't understand love without control, without dependence, without the attempt to change the other. This is where many spiritually awakened people feel confused. They wonder, am I cold? Have I lost the ability to fall in love? But the opposite is true. You haven't lost love. You've simply stopped accepting distorted love. Low vibration love, the kind that comes from lack, fear, and the need for approval, no longer finds its place in you. And as painful as it may be, this is liberating. It's like exchanging noise for silence. At first you feel strange, but then you realize how much you were surrounded by emotional noise. The frequency of awakening is disturbing. It makes people look in the mirror and see what they still need to heal. That's why often those who awaken end up pushing others away unintentionally. You don't do anything. You just but its presence already changes the environment. Alan Watts talked a lot about this, about how awakened consciousness functions as an energy field that reflects its surroundings. And true love, when it arises from someone awakened, does exactly that. It reveals. It exposes the other's fear, insecurity, and ego. And few are ready to be seen that way. But there's beauty in this process. When you realize your energy no longer matches the chaos, you understand it's not isolation, it's filtering. The universe begins to protect you, pushing away what doesn't. Vibrate at the same frequency and bringing in what truly resonates with your new state. But while this transition happens, love can seem impossible. Old connections crumble, fragile bonds break, and you begin to wonder if there will be anyone left in this new world. It's at this point that awakening tests your patience. Because true love, the kind that vibrates at the same consciousness as you, isn't quick. It requires time, maturity, and truth. And this is precisely where many people relapse. They miss the intensity of their old love, even though they know it was unbalanced. The mind begins to say, better a messy love than loneliness. But the awakened heart already knows there's no going back. It's like trying to live in a place where the air no longer enters. You suffocate. So what's left is to trust. Trust that the right energy will find you when you're truly ready to receive a love that doesn't need to heal you because you're already healed. I want you to say one word now to seal this part of the process. Right frequency. This word shows that you understand that true love is not about trying to fit someone into your world, but about vibrating in a way that makes the universe bring those who vibrate the same way. And there's a detail many people overlook. Something that happens to almost every awakened person when they begin to open themselves up to love again. It's a mix of fear and intuition, an impulse to protect themselves, and a deep desire to surrender. And that's precisely where the next step of this journey lies. When you begin to open yourself up to love again after awakening, something inside you struggles. Part of you wants to dive in, feel, surrender. But another part, more conscious, more attentive, raises an alarm. It's the ego's fear of losing itself again. It's the fear of repeating old patterns, of opening your heart to someone who doesn't yet understand what it means to love with presence. It's as if, in a split second, you were able to see the whole story before it even begins. And so you hesitate. The heart wants it, but the soul watches. And this is one of the greatest challenges of love for those who are spiritually awakened. Learning to surrender again, even knowing the risk it represents. Before love was impulse, now it's consciousness. Before you ran without thinking, now you overthink before taking a step. And this excess of lucidity, which should be liberating, sometimes feels like a prison. Alan Watts said that love only exists when there is surrender, that you can't control love, only allow it to happen. But after so many wounds, those who awaken find it difficult to let go of control. Because now, love doesn't hurt just because of disappointment. It hurts because it reveals what hasn't yet healed within you. When someone gets close, the ego reappears disguised as protection, and you start building walls around something that, deep down, just wanted to blossom again. This is where true love demands courage. Courage to let your guard down without losing consciousness. Courage to be vulnerable even knowing you might get hurt. And this is the fine line that separates spiritual love from egoic love. The ego wants guarantees. Promise me you'll stay, that you won't betray me, that you'll love me the same way. The soul, on the other hand, understands that love is unpredictable, and yet it chooses to love. The awakened learn to accept this uncertainty with maturity, knowing that love is not a contract. It is a flow. But living like this in a world full of insecurities is almost an act of rebellion. Many people mistake this surrender for weakness, but it is, in fact, the greatest sign of strength. Loving without needing to control is like walking without knowing the destination, but trusting the path. And this trust is rare. Few understand how difficult it is to love consciously. Because the awakened one doesn't love out of a need to have someone, they love because they recognize in the other a reflection of the divine. And when this reflection appears, they don't try to capture it. They simply contemplate. It's a calm yet intense love, free yet profound. But the world still doesn't know how to handle this kind of love. That's why those who awaken often end up being judged as cold, difficult, or indifferent. But the truth is, you just don't want to confuse intensity with dependence anymore. You just don't want a love that suffocates you while claiming to love you. And that's okay. Mature love isn't made of promises. It's made of presence. When you understand this, you begin to realize that you don't have to choose between loving and protecting yourself. You just need to learn to love in a new way, without letting fear dictate the rules. And I want to know from you, have you ever experienced this conflict between wanting to love and being afraid to give yourself over again? Write the word courage in the comments, so I know you're going through this process too. It's important to share this because many people think they're alone in this dilemma, and they're not. All awakened people go through this phase where love seems too dangerous to feel, but too empty to ignore, and it's precisely this phase that prepares you for what comes next, a moment when your energy begins to affect the world around you in ways you couldn't yet imagine. Because when you learn to love without fear, something changes not only within you, but in everything around you. It's at this point that awakening completely changes the meaning of the word love, because now you understand that love isn't something you have, but something you are. And this shift seems simple, but it changes everything. Before, love was a search. You looked outside, searching for someone to complete you, to fill that aching space. Now love comes from within. It's no longer neediness, it's presence. You don't love to receive. You love because you can't help but love. It's like breathing, something natural, spontaneous that flows effortlessly. But the world still doesn't understand this kind of love. And that's why for those who awaken, love becomes something so rare and at the same time so powerful. Alan Watts said that love is the recognition of oneself in another. When you truly love, there is no separation. You see the other as an extension of the same whole. And that's exactly what the awakened person feels. They don't love a person for who they are, but for who they become through this connection. Love ceases to be an exchange and becomes an experience of unity. You begin to realize that loving is, in fact, remembering who you've always been, a living expression of universal love. And when you reach this point, you realize that love isn't limited to a relationship. It's in everything. In the gaze of a stranger, in the sound of the wind, in the touch of an animal, in every sincere gesture. But this understanding comes at a price, because the world still demands that love have an owner, rules, and conditions. When you begin to love freely, many people will say you've changed too much, and you have. The awakened one no longer needs validation, promises, or guarantees. They don't love to be loved. They love because loving is their nature. That's why for those who still live at the level of the ego, this kind of love seems impossible. It's too simple to understand, too deep to control. And while most still confuse love with attachment, the awakened one discovers that true love only exists where there is freedom. This is the kind of love that demands nothing, yet transforms everything. It heals because it doesn't come from need. It soothes because it doesn't come from fear. It expands because it has no limits. When you begin to love like this, even loneliness changes meaning. It ceases to be absence and becomes space. The space where love lives, grows, and multiplies. The awakened understand that love is not a relationship between two people. It is a frequency that connects everything. And this understanding changes the way you relate to the world. You stop asking for love and start being love, and that is one of the greatest liberations anyone can experience. And it's interesting how, when you begin to live in this state, everything around you responds. People sense your energy and begin to calm down around you. Situations that previously threw you off balance become less powerful. You begin to attract experiences that reflect your vibration. And without realizing it, you begin to inspire others. Because true love is contagious. It doesn't need to be taught, just felt. And the awakened, by living with love as a state of being, becomes a living reminder that it is possible to live in peace without needing anything in return. Comment the word here, love, to show that this part made sense to you, that you understood that true love isn't something you chase, but something that arises when you stop running from yourself. This word is a symbol of your understanding, and that you're beginning to vibrate in a new, lighter, more conscious way. But there's something curious that happens after that. When love stops being a search and becomes an essence, the universe begins to act in surprising ways. It's as if, just when you stop looking, something or someone finds you. And that's when the journey takes a turn no one expects. It's funny how the universe has an almost ironic way of working. When you finally stop looking for love, that's exactly when it appears. Only it doesn't come in the way you expected. It doesn't come with promises, nor with that explosive impact of old passions. It arrives quietly, silently, and takes you by surprise. Because true love doesn't make noise. It doesn't come to prove anything to you, it comes to show you what you've always been. That's when you realize that the love that seemed impossible was, in fact, inevitable. It was just waiting for the moment you stopped searching outside for what always existed within. Those who awaken understand this in practice. After so many disappointments, healings, and silences, you begin to see love not as something that needs to be earned, but as something that blossoms naturally when you're ready. And the curious thing is that when love reaches this level, it doesn't require effort. It simply happens. It's light, it's clean, it's reciprocal. There are no games, no waiting, no fear. The love between two awakened souls is calm, yet intense. It's a kind of love that doesn't knock you off your feet. It makes you want to stay grounded, because there's no longer any illusion. There's truth. And this is the most beautiful part. The awakened one doesn't seek a relationship to escape loneliness, but finds someone to share silence with. And when two people love each other like this, love ceases to be a prison and becomes a path. One helps the other evolve, without possession, without pressure. It's as if love becomes a clean mirror, where each person sees themselves clearly without distortion. Alan Watts said that love is a dance, and that the beauty of dance lies in not wanting to get anywhere. True love is exactly that, a constant movement with no final destination, just rhythm, harmony, and presence. But before reaching this point, the awakened must learn to trust again. Trust that it is possible to love and be loved without losing oneself in the process. Trust that the universe knows the right time to unite those who vibrate at the same frequency. Because true love isn't constructed, it's revealed. It appears when you align so much with your essence that the universe has no choice but to mirror it back to you. And this love is rare, because it requires two people who are no longer looking for salvation in each other, but who have chosen to walk together out of pure inner abundance. When this encounter happens, you feel it. There's no doubt. There's no fear. There's peace. It's as if time stands still and everything makes sense. And it's in that moment that you understand that love was never impossible. It was just waiting for you to mature so it could truly exist. And the most surprising thing is that it doesn't come to complete your journey, it comes to expand it. Love between awakened beings isn't an end. It's the beginning of a new consciousness, a new way of living, feeling, and existing. Now you understand why true love seemed impossible. This content opened your eyes to something many people spend their entire lives without realizing. The problem was never love. It was the way you sought it. And when this truth sinks in, everything changes. You begin to relate differently, with more clarity, more awareness, and more lightness. And if this message made you see love in a new light, then it fulfilled its purpose. Now it's your turn to spread this change. Like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find this same awakening. Comment the word here, reborn, because that's exactly what happens when you truly understand love. Something inside you is reborn, and you become ready to live in a way that the world doesn't yet understand, but that you already feel. And stay tuned, because the next video will show you one of the most powerful secrets about energy and spiritual connection, something that will make everything you've learned today fall into place. You'll understand why nothing that's happened in your life was by chance, and why love has always known its way back to you.